In this episode of The Christian Philosopher, we'll talk about the Kalam Cosmological Argument for the existence of God. Welcome back, everyone. Scott Sullivan here from the Aquinas School of Theology and Philosophy. Today we are talking about the Kalam argument for the existence of God, known as the Kalam Cosmological Argument. I've been kind of leading up to this, honestly. In previous videos, I have argued that we have good reasons to think that the world began. The world hasn't always existed forever, and I gave 4 arguments for those reasons. There were 4 prior videos on that. And then I also did another video on the principle of causality and why we should think that the statement, whatever begins to exist has a cause, is true. I even argued that it was necessarily true, couldn't be false. So I've been building up to this argument, and now I kind of want to get down to the nitty-gritty. So in this video, I want to talk about what is known as the Kalam Cosmological Argument for the existence of God. This is easily the most popular and commonly discussed argument in the contemporary philosophical world, the world of philosophy of religion. When you look at different philosophical journals and things that all the academic philosophers are talking about when it comes to the existence of God, man, this one's always is always on the table. You know what I mean? So it's very common. It's very commonly discussed and written about in academic journals and so on. So it's very popular today. In this video, I'm going to give you my take on this argument. And personally, one of the things I like to do, I focus on the philosophical support for the premises, and that's what I've been doing in these prior videos. That's different than other people's approaches. Some people like to focus on the scientific support for, say, the beginning of the universe. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But the reason why I focus on the philosophical support is simply because I think the arguments from philosophy on that they are more demonstrative. Science, by its very nature, is always tentative. You know what I mean? Science is coming to new conclusions all the time. And while Big Bang cosmology might be all the rage these days, it may not be tomorrow. So that's why I focus on the philosophical support, because contradictions will never be true, right? So that's what I argued in these earlier videos, that to posit that the world has always existed lands you in a number of contradictions. So I think these philosophical reasons for thinking that the universe began to exist are just more powerful than the scientific reasons for thinking so. So that's my take on it, and it's my video, so that's what I'm going to talk about. So just a little bit behind this argument. This argument, it seems to have originated in the history of philosophy with the Christian thinker John Philoponus, a Christian thinker, lived around the year 550 A.D. or so. This argument was later picked up by numerous Islamic, Christian, and Jewish thinkers. And like I said, it's arguably the most commonly talked about argument today in the contemporary philosophy of religion. There have been numerous formulations of this argument. I'm just going to use the one today that's most commonly used. All right, it was put out, I think, formulated this way very frequently, of course, by Dr. William Lane Craig, and it's a perfectly good formulation. And it goes like this: Premise 1: whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise 2: the universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. All right, so of course, this argument is logically valid, meaning that if those premises are true, the conclusion has to be true. That's just how logic works. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. That's just the way it goes. And I think, as I have argued in prior videos, like I said, I think both of those premises are true, right? Whatever begins to exist has a cause. That's known as the principle of causality. And in an earlier video, looks like it was the Christian Philosopher episode 29 to be exact. I argued that the principle of causality is true given these 3 arguments: the argument from intuition, the argument from inductive experience, and the argument from the principle of sufficient reason. So we can know for sure, I think, that the principle of causality, whatever begins to exist has a cause, is true. I argue that it was necessarily so. So that's the first premise. And now the second premise, as I have argued as well, the universe began to exist. I gave 4 arguments for this premise in prior videos, the Christian Philosopher episodes 25, 26, 27, and 28 to be exact. These four arguments were the argument from the impossibility of traversing the infinite, the argument from the impossibility of forming the infinite by successive addition. Number 3, the argument from the impossibility of increasing the infinite. And number 4, the argument from the impossibility of the part equaling the whole. So as we can see, as I've argued, the premises are true, and that means the conclusion must be true as well. The universe has a cause. Now, one of the ways I like to think about the Kalam Cosmological Argument is in 2 steps. So in step 1, we prove that the universe has a cause, and then in step 2, we show that that cause has the attributes of a being that we can justifiably call God. So that would end step 1 of the argument, showing that the universe has a cause. But then we move to step 2 because, after all, what must this cause be like? Why do we say this cause of the universe has to be God? Why couldn't it be an energy? Why couldn't it be an alien or some kind of force? How are we justified in saying that this cause would be like God or must be like God? So this is the step 2 of the argument, where we show that a first cause of the universe would have to be uncaused, timeless, immaterial, personal, and really, really powerful, okay? Maybe not omnipotent, okay, but at least super, super powerful, okay? So let's look at this. What we're doing here is that once we know that a first cause of the universe exists, we can kind of do a little philosophical analysis on what a first cause of the universe would have to be like. What would its attributes, in other words, have to be like? And the first thing that we can know is that the first cause of the universe would have to be timeless, immaterial, and transcendent. So timeless meaning the first cause would be outside of time because it caused all time. Immaterial because it caused all of the material things. I said that the universe, as I defined it, was everything, every time-bound material thing. We said that all those things had to have an absolute beginning point. So whatever created the time-bound physical world can't be a part of that creation. Nothing can create itself. I've talked about that in some other videos as well. A thing I can't make myself, because if I don't exist yet, if I'm going to be made, I can't do anything, right? In order to cause myself, I would have to both exist to do any causing and yet not exist to be caused or brought into being. In other words, it's a contradiction. I would have to both be and not be at the same time. So self-causation is just nonsense. So a creator of the physical time-bound universe can't be a part of that. He would be creating himself, in other words. So it has to be transcendent, that is, outside all the physical, temporal, changing world that we are talking about here. So we are justified in thinking that the cause of the universe would have to be outside of time, timeless, immaterial, not a physical thing of any sort, and transcendent, apart from the physical temporal world that this being in fact creates. Secondly, we can say that the cause of the universe would have to be really, really powerful, right? It would take a lot of power to make the entire universe that we're looking at with our telescopes. And this, of course, exceeds the capacity by far of anything we know about. So super powerful. It's not something that human beings can do. It's not something that anything we know of can do. St. Thomas Aquinas actually argued that to bring something into being out of nothing would require infinite power, omnipotence, because to go from nothing, pure nothing, to complete being is a kind of an ontological infinite gap. And there's more I can say about that. But we don't even have to go that far, right? All we have to say is whatever it was that created the universe had to be really, really powerful, and that's all we're trying to show here. And then finally, we can say that the cause of the universe here would have to be personal. Why? Well, a personal being, what we mean by that, okay, is a being with both intellect and will, can think about things and choose things. Think and choose, think and choose. That's what we mean by personal being. And we can reason that the cause of the universe would have to be personal, something that could think and choose. And the reason why is because whatever it was that created the universe had to make some choices, okay? First of all, it had to choose to make the universe versus not. So there's an option right there. Should it make the universe or not? The universe didn't always exist. We argued that. So whatever it was that created the universe had the option to create it or not, because the universe could have existed or not. At one point it didn't, and at some point it did. There's a selection process in there. It's what theologians call the liberty of contradiction, deciding that the universe will exist versus not exist. And then secondly, there are, a potentially infinite number of possible worlds that could have been created, right? We could have had a universe with our solar system having only 5 planets or 10. Obviously, many different variations of the universe that we have, more atoms, less atoms, different strengths and different physical forces and so on. So there are a lot of different options, a lot of different possible worlds could have been created. And then whatever it was that created this universe created this option versus a whole lot of other possibilities. This is what theologians call the liberty of specification. So since the cause of the universe seems to have had made choices to bring the universe in being versus letting it stay in non-being, and bringing this universe that we have into being versus whatever other possible worlds there are, it seems that we have a personal being, right, with intellect and will that can choose, not just energy, not just some sort of higher power. You see what I mean? So we have a personal creator as well. So to summarize here, my thought is that the Kalam cosmological argument should be thought of in 2 parts, or 2 stages, or 2 phases, or whatever you want to call it. In part 1, we show that a cause of the universe must exist. And then in part 2, we show what this cause must be like and why we are justified in saying this cause is God, because it's transcendent, timeless, powerful, personal, and all those things. So let's just kind of summarize the whole argument, kind of bring a lot of these different thoughts together in a brief, sort of succinct fashion. So we say that the Kalam cosmological argument, the first part of the argument argues this: whatever begins to exist has a cause. And as I argued, this is an intuitively obvious principle. We can know it through common sense, we can know it through inductive experience, and we can know it through philosophical reflection, as I argued in earlier videos. So whatever begins to exist has a cause. I think that premise is true. And then the second premise too, the universe began to exist. I gave 4 arguments for that premise. I think it's certainly true. The arguments I gave was the impossibility of reaching the infinite by successive addition, the impossibility of traversing through an infinite number of days to reach the present day, the impossibility of adding to the infinite, and the impossibility of the part equaling the whole. So we have a really strong conclusion now that says the universe has a cause. That's part 1 of the Kalam cosmological argument. Part 2, we show what the cause must be like, and as I have argued here, the cause of this universe must be, number 1, timeless, because it brought all time into being. Number 2, it must be immaterial, because it brought all matter into being. And again, nothing can create itself. Number 3, this cause must be transcendent, because it brought the material world into being and cannot be a part of that world. It can't be a piece of its own creation. In other words, you know what I'm saying? It has to be outside of that creation, outside of that material world, and therefore transcendent. And finally, number 4, I say that the cause must be personal, because the cause of the universe was able to make certain choices, such as whether or not the world was going to exist at all, and which one of the different possible worlds was in fact going to exist. So since an uncaused, timeless, immaterial, transcendent, and personal cause of the universe is what people mean by God, it's what people mean when they talk about God, we can say, therefore, that the Kalam cosmological argument shows that God exists.